So this is our last week of the looking at the Masters project. So far we've looked at a little bit of the old Masters, like Rembrandt, then we moved on to Turner, who was a bit more progressive, and then last session I did a little bit on Monet. Monet's gone. So that was basically all copying, all those paintings. I thought today what I'd do is combine that impressionistic idea, but use a photo of my own. So the idea would be to perhaps try and paint something roughly in a Monet style or one of those early impressionists, but using my own references, so my own interpretation. So I thought, which one suits you doing that? I know Mal's doing a nice work, or was doing a nice picture. It's all finished now. So Mal was doing like a Cézanne-inspired painting. So again, it's another idea you could explore if you want to. So I took this photograph at the weekend. It's you know Cherry Orchard sort of country park bit. So it's around there, and the blossoms coming out. Bit of a dull day, but I thought it was lovely to see. And a couple of years ago, I did a painting of a gate with lots of other kind of wildflowers and things growing. It just reminded me of that, and I thought I could do something sort of similar, really. I'm not going to get very far with it today, but what I would do is just follow the steps that the impression, in the book that would suggest that Monet went through, which was really starting off with just blocking in some colour. I probably won't bother with the sky, but I'll just get a little bit of colour here. I've spent a few minutes just sketching this out while you were waiting, and this. So the picture itself, I thought probably wants to be cropped a little bit, a tiny bit at the top and bottom, and maybe a little bit at the side. So that's just how it printed up straight off the camera. But you don't have to literally stick to whatever's in the photograph. This board is probably a little bit too wide, so I'm thinking I would just chop that bit down. So I'll cut that off when I'm finished. So I'm really thinking that sort of shape, but just kind of let it expand to the sort of space it's in to want to take. Quite often use 12" by 16, but this I felt I wanted to go a little bit wider, so that's what I'm going with that. Oh, that was one from a previous time that I did. The idea of this was like a Van Gogh inspired painting. That's one from the last time we did this. So just do a little bit of underpainting, and then if you want to see this progress, I'll progress this over the next couple of sessions with the other groups. So you could just watch a little bit at the end of the last video, and it will be on there. So I just want a kind of nice warm yellowy colour here, just kind of underpainting. The nice thing about sketching and paint is I can just keep moving things around. The gate was a bit higher. I like the idea of just sort of grouping these a little bit closer together. And it was a bit bigger, but that didn't really work out. So I can very easily wash areas out. So the water mixable oils, which I think are great for in this sort of environment, they're not too smelly or anything. And working in this way, I can get almost like a visualization of how the whole thing is going to work before I start getting too detailed. So I'm thinking this bit here is a little bit redder, so I'll use the colour I've got, and then hopefully by the end of that I'll have a bit of an impression of how it's all going to look. Some of these bits of the gate are actually a little bit lighter than what I've drawn them, so. So I'm not going to take this too far today in this session. And that's probably enough for underpainting. And then what I can then do is then go down, perhaps down a little bit in size brushes. Not too tiny, but I can then put sort of thicker paint in and maybe thin it a little bit with medium. So this medium is just water mixable linseed oil and the water mixable solvent mixed together, and it just helps the paint flow a little bit. Some white, okay, and a little bit of blue. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter than it was, because it was a little bit of a dull day. Where the tree's quite solid, I'm just going to leave it, but where I can see little bits poking through, I'll put a bit of background in there. I'll just kind of leave some. And although this is quite a tricky one, because the blossom it's white blossom, but it's against the light, it's actually coming out darker in tone than the sky. So that can be quite a challenge. So just be something to be aware of. And with the sky, perhaps try and find, I've added a tiny bit of yellow there, perhaps a tiny bit of red. Just try and find a few different colours in there. It was a dull, overcast day, but I can still try and make the sky look interesting with different colours, playing different colours off of each other. Is that all right for that one? Yep. So I'll carry that on, as I say, this afternoon with the other class. The other thing I thought I'd just mention, Claire was talking about her painting and making changes. Yeah. Just to put you on the spot.
Thank you.
So oil paint is such a forgiving medium. So this was one of the demos that I did to start with. And I just wanted to demonstrate, once this is dried, you can then, do what you want, play around. If it goes wrong, it will come off. So we could add a little bit of just random colour. Say I wanted to sort of put some bright colours there, I'll go a little bit thicker. And perhaps some darks. I don't know, this is really quite, I can kind of add this in. Let's do something else. Let's have a bit of white in, a bit of white here. So, whatever it is, that will come off. I can always wipe that off. I can always get rid of that. I'll start just with a bit of rag, get back to there. And then I tend to just use a bit of painting medium, which is something with a little bit of linseed oil on. Whoops, that's a dirty brush. That's my clean brush. But because this paint is dry, you can just get a little bit of medium, and then that will just wipe back to the previous layer. So if you're, I do tend to do this quite a lot, particularly when there's like some sort of fine detail, like quite often, like you were talking about painting the rigging and how nerve-wracking that is, which it is, but the fact that once it's properly dry, you can pop you could do some fine lines. If they go wrong, you can just wipe it back, and you're back to that layer. You're not damaging that layer. Now that's much more difficult than acrylics, because acrylics dries, and as soon as you put something on the top, you've got to be so quick to get that off. Whereas that, if I'd left those marks up, could go away for 10, 15 minutes, or half a day, and that wouldn't have dried. I can sort of wipe bits back to where I was. So quite often I'll paint something and then try and improve it, but if it's not any better, I'll just wipe it back to the layer I was on and then have another go. There you go. So that's one of the things that you could do. Yeah. So that's the nice thing about oils. So just something else to.
Did you say you put a medium over it to get fine detail?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. You could do, yeah. So this, if I wanted sort of like, I could, theme paint over. I could, put more glazes or something like that. Or sometimes, actually, the other thing that sometimes I come across is sometimes students might, or somebody might, or I might, leave an area far too bright. And again, with a bit of medium, you could just mix a glaze and just dull an area down. And particularly if you've got a soft brush, you can almost sort of minimise the brushwork. So that's a way of just taking things down a little bit, if it's tonally too bright, without completely repainting, all the variations. So that's a nice, nice thing about it. The other thing I thought I'd mention is, I think I've shown you these before. Well, a couple of things. Somebody this afternoon wanted me to demonstrate varnishing, so I'm not going to do that this session, but I just thought I'd show you the difference. So I brought a few paintings in that I'm going to use. So that's one that I have varnished. I can't quite remember what varnish I put on there, but I tend to use like what they call a retouching varnish, which I find helps to bring out the dark areas. So that was one I did a couple of years ago. And then, and to contrast that, that's one I did last week in, wherever we went, Windsor. So in the boatyard in Windsor. And that's, this one I haven't varnished yet. So I'll probably put a bit of varnish on there. And it will bring out all these kind of deeper tones. It will sort of kind of enrich that. It's not, you don't have to varnish paintings, but if you want to, that is an option you've got. So I just thought I'd show you that. And so next week is another month. I'm not sure how many weeks is in it, but five is it a 5 week? Right, okay. So the next project is watercolours. God, we've got 5 weeks of watercolours. Alright, so feel free to carry on with the oils if you want. So for those of you that are interested in watercolours, and I do try and keep a balance in all the different mediums and all the different subjects. I know there's 1 or 2 people that are really into watercolours. So if that's you and you want to practice a bit of watercolours, that's going to be the next project. I've got plenty of materials here, so if you're not used to watercolours and you just want to have a go, I've got loads of materials, so you're welcome to use what I've got. And I'd advise what you can get with and things like that.
Oh, do you use the liquid watercolours, or in the tubes, or do you use the?
I mostly use the tubes, yeah. And sometimes I just squeeze them into pans and just let them go down ready. But I find that the tube paint I think it's easier to get. Yeah. The little boxes are really good if you're just doing a quick sketch. Yeah. And you don't. But it's hard to. I find if people. I've seen a lot of students working, trying to do a great big wash with this tiny little thing, and they're grinding away for. You could be grinding away for 20 minutes before you've got enough painted out, really. So the tubes are much easier. So I've got both, and you can have a look from there. All good? Any questions? Yeah, right.